Zach LaVine has apparently finally come to the reality of what the 2024 and 25 season is going to have in store for him, at least at the start of the season, as he vows to not get in the way of the youth development. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to talk about Matss Buzelies turning heads at Chicago Bulls training camp reportedly, and also why the Bulls are getting it wrong yet again with Coby White. We'll talk about all that, plus Derrick Rose. No, he should not come back to Chicago. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. Man, I want to start off with this Zach LaVine topic that, I didn't talk a lot about when I did the breaking news episode yesterday on Patrick Williams and him suffering a setback with his injury that I knew was going to trigger a lot of Bulls fans. I talked about it a little bit over on Locked On Bulls as far as like just the statement, like if Zach LaVine vowing not to get in the way of the development of the young players. And here's the thing. I don't think Zach LaVine really had a choice when it came down to it. Like, this is a team that, make no mistake about it, regardless of Zach, like he will start the season. He may even finish the season on the Chicago Bulls. But they were looking to move on from you, bruh. Yeah, you could have vowed not to get into the way, but if you would have become a distraction, best believe that it wouldn't have gone your way, right? And I think it's Zach LaVine coming to terms with the reality of what his situation is now looking like with the Chicago Bulls. This is no longer a team that's just built around you. Now, I do think, and I've said this before, that Zach LaVine can thrive theoretically in what this team is trying to do. I think that having a point guard like Josh Giddey there, having, both guards and Coby White and Josh Giddey and how they rebound and they can start the fast breaks, all those type of things is hugely important and could be something that Zach LaVine could very well thrive in, right? But Zach LaVine, welcome to the damn party. Just being 100% honest, welcome to the party. Everybody else could see the direction that this is going now. I don't want to shit on the fact that Zach LaVine, apparently after having several meetings with the Bulls front office and Billy Donovan, that he is vowed not to get into the way of what they're trying to do with the development of the youth on this team. And what does that really mean for Zach LaVine next season? Well, Zach is going to have a big role on the team regardless. And I think that that's something that, maybe in the conversation around this topic and the news since you dropped almost got talked about as if like Zach LaVine is like, oh, well, he's gonna willingly go down to the third option on offense. And that's not necessarily true, right? Like, Zach LaVine is still going to have a big role on this team with his ability to score. It's more about how he gets his points than him not getting points, right? And that's the thing in this, is that it comes down to how Zach LaVine is going to go about to get it. And that may come with less isolations than Zach LaVine has played with before. It may come off doing more catch and shoot type things, which Zach LaVine is actually pretty damn good at catch and shoot opportunities, and how he's operated in that. It's always been that Billy Donovan doesn't run or has not run up until this point a lot of catch and shooting opportunities for it, and getting out in transition, the ball being handled by other players more often, right? So these are things that, it's going to impact Zach more in the how, the way that he goes about getting it. But Zach LaVine can still get his numbers. Now, that's not the most important thing this season either, Zach LaVine getting numbers. And Zach, if he's focused on the betterment of the team and where he can go, that's plays a big part into this as well, is that it's not just about Zach LaVine going out there and putting up your numbers. It's about being more efficient in that. And so that's really what it comes down to, like, when you look at it. Zach LaVine coming to the realization is good. I want to be clear on this, and like I said over on Locked On Bulls, at this point in the offseason, you should hear nothing but positivity about your team. You should hear that everybody's bought in, everybody's excited, and that's what we're hearing here. And now, that's not to say that I don't think it's real, right? We heard that Zach was in Miami with the team, that he footed the bill for a lot, as well as other veterans. The Bulls basically turned a hotel room gym into their training camp facility while they're in Miami, and it seems like he's been engaged. He's been building those relationships, building those bonds. That's all great. But what it means on the court is that things are going to change a little bit, even more so than what they did with him learning to play with DeMar, right? Like, Lonzo Ball basically did not operate even when that team was fully healthy in the half court. A lot of that went to DeMar DeRozan. That's why the Bulls slowed down more in the half court when they had those type of half court opportunities. But Zach LaVine was still getting a lot of isolation points in that time as well. Now that could change, is where it's just not in isolation. And honestly, that could make Zach LaVine a better, more efficient player, honestly, if we're coming down to it. And the thing that I've always said with Zach this offseason is that no team that Zach LaVine could go to, if he still wants to be traded, if the Bulls do trade him this season, whatever, right? There's no team that he's going to go to that he's going to be the number one option. So coming in and showing, hey, I played a secondary role, right? I fit in, right? I played a complementary role to how these guys are playing. And you think I can't do that for somebody better? So that's that. It helps the narrative around Zach LaVine. It also could help Zach LaVine on the court. What's the one thing, right, that we always have talked about with Zach LaVine? It's clutch and how he fails in the clutch a lot of times, right? The turnovers, the bounce of the ball off his foot, despite him being a pretty good dribbler, his ball handling, especially in clutch moments, is some of the worst that you've seen, right? And so having Zach LaVine that he's going to still get isolation scoring. In no way is it going to be completely eliminated from Zach LaVine's game. That's part of the reason why we talked about in yesterday's episode who becomes the stagger player for the Chicago Bulls, in which maybe Zach LaVine can do more traditional Zach LaVine type things when he is staggered his minutes with the bench. And so that comes down to, but how does it benefit the youth? That's one of the biggest questions that I've seen some people say things that are stupid. I'm sorry, you're stupid. That it comes down to, well, it hurts the youth just by having Zach LaVine on the team. No, that's not true. Right? If your youth can only grow by being the only players on the team, then you're not really, unless you have superstar youth, you're not really going to get anywhere with that. Right? So Zach LaVine being able to alleviate some of that scoring problems, provide some much needed spacing. Spacing is not going to come at a premium for the Chicago Bulls team. So providing some of that spacing as well, right, is going to help young players grow their game and have a environment in which they can work on some of the things. What's some of the things that we want Patrick Williams to do more naturally? Cut. What's something that Matss Buzelies is really good at right now? Cutting. You know what helps with cutting? When you have some spacing. You know what provides some spacing? Three-point shooting. Zach LaVine is going to be able to do that, as well as the scoring gravity that he has. Is that, listen, I know that Zach LaVine has been talked about as if he's a trash player throughout most of this offseason, but best believe, most NBA defenses are going to be keying in and trying to make sure that they can throw Zach LaVine off his game. That gravity, it helps players, especially a player like Josh Giddey, who, especially when he has the ball in his hands, while he's not, a threat to shoot the three right now, teams are going to try to pack it in the lane. Having players in Coby White and Zach LaVine that can score out on the perimeter, as well as a presence down low in Vooch and things like that, that helps create an environment for the young players to be able to grow and operate on certain things in their game. I know a lot of people want to see, hey, let's just turn the keys over to these young players and let them go. And sometimes that works for some people, right? But when you provide more of a environment, right, more of a structure, so to say, to your offensive game, and Zach LaVine is going to help provide some of that structure by what he does well. It's up to Billy Donovan to make sure that he finds a way to balance out what Zach LaVine does well with what these younger guys that are growing their game need, right, as far as still putting together a competent and NBA-style offense. And theoretically, from what we've heard, is that the Bulls are going to be trying to play more up-tempo game. That helps with those things. So a lot of that plays into a part. Overall, the comments from Zach LaVine the report of Zach LaVine's comments, because we didn't get a direct quote from Zach LaVine to know for sure, is that, he vows to not get in the way. And to say, what does that mean? That means being a team player. That means understanding the concepts that this team is trying to instill and not putting yourself above that. And that's a good teammate. And, there have been some people that have talked about Zach LaVine as if he's a bad teammate. And, does he have some ways on the floor at times? I will say this, the biggest sign that I ever had some concern on was at times last season after he came back. I know his assist numbers were high, but it almost came like it was trying to prove a point, right? So Zach LaVine coming into the season, buying in. And that's ultimately what this just means, that he's buying in with what the direction that this Bulls team has clearly set for its roster. That's better for everyone. That's just better for everyone. That's better for the game of basketball. That's better for the development. That's better for the culture that we're trying to build here. And it's ultimately better for team identity as well. Something that, again, we've been trying to establish a team identity for freaking 3 years, probably longer than that. And we haven't had that. And so, let's see the next evolution and step in Zach LaVine's development as well. He's now the wily vet. That's what Zach LaVine is. I know it's kind of hard to look at him that way, but Zach LaVine is the vet now on a team, him and Vooch to a degree, on a team that's clearly changing paths and changing directions. How they adapt to that is going to be important, not only for as long as they're on this Bulls team, but as well as maybe the future and what the Bulls could get for them if they can or decide or whatever they do to move those guys. So that's ultimately how I take Zach LaVine's, the rumors around Zach. And at this point, it is what it is. We'll see what develops out of it. And the story is going to be told on the basketball court. It's not going to be told by writers and anything else. Now, let's get into something else, right, that came out of this article that I think was overshadowed by two things. The Patrick Williams injury news, the Zach LaVine vowing to whatever. It overshadowed another thing in Darnell Mayberry's article here that all this kind of spurred from, and that is that the Bulls feel Coby White is best not handling playmaking responsibilities, according to Darnell Mayberry, that an off-ball role is not the one Coby White coveted. He said he views himself as a point guard. Now, he did say that. But I'm also going to go to another quote because a lot of people are going to use that quote of Coby White saying he views himself as a point guard, and I'm not taking away from that. But Coby also said this in January of 2024, that he needs to improve his game by learning how to move without the ball. Now, moving without the ball and playing off ball are a lot of different things, right? And that is one of the biggest questions about the acquisition of Josh Giddey is that how does it impact your player that had a most improved player of the year season last year? He didn't win the award, but he had a most improved player of the year season. I don't care what nobody says. He improved more than anybody else last season in both role and output. And so there's that legitimate concern on, all right, are you trying once again, force a player to do something in which their skill set has shown you isn't necessarily their best ability? Now, yes, Coby does need to learn how to move and grow without the ball. That's part of every lethal score. You have to have some off-ball access. Now, you still can use your on-ball duties and your pull-ups and things like that, but growing in how you move without the ball, those type of things are important. But the Bulls aren't just hoping that Coby now can grow off ball. They're changing it into where he's not going to have the playmaking duties that he had last year. Now, with that said, here's the thing, is that can Coby grow to that? Maybe, right? Like, Coby White has been kind of looked at for a long part as kind of being that microwave scorer, and I think last year showed that he's not necessarily he can become a microwave, but he's kind of better when he can dictate that pace and things himself, at least by what he showed last year. Now, I have some numbers here. I want to talk about Coby White as an on-ball player versus as an on-ball player. So off-ball, Coby White, out of his 19 points that he scored last year, 5.6 of those came in off-ball opportunities for Coby White. He shot the ball 36.5% from the field in catch-and-shoot opportunities and off-ball, right? So that's not great. 36.5 is not a great field goal percentage at all. He also set the same 36.5 from three-point percentage rate and had an effective field goal percentage of 54%, which isn't a bad effective field goal percentage. But again, 5.6 points per game came as Coby White playing off-ball. That's not great. Now, when you look at Coby White, reversing that, what did Coby White look like on ball? Well, let's look at it. So on drive opportunities, which is clearly when you have the ball in your hands, right? He scored 7.5 points per game driving to the lane with a drive field goal percentage of 50.8. That's really good when you look at that. The catch and shoot percentage, we already talked about 36.5, not great. Pull-ups, dribble pull-ups. Coby White actually turned himself into one of the better pull-up shooters last season, averaging 4.1 points per game in that time and shooting the ball 40% from the field. What does that mean? Coby White, out of the 19 points per game that he scored last season, 11 of those came when he had the ball off his hand and was either scoring off drives or scoring off pull-up opportunities. That just is what it is. That's what the data is telling us. And touches in the paint when he's already in the paint, he doesn't have a post game. 0.1 points scored in that time period, but he did shoot 57.1%. So maybe that's another aspect of his game that you can look to grow from him a little bit. The end of the day is that Coby White is better scoring-wise when he has had the ball in his hand, he's been able to be ball dominant. Now, that does not mean that he's still not going to get those opportunities. I want to point out here, playmaking duties and isolation are different. Coby has shown that he can score in isolation. Now, that still is going to leave Josh Giddey to do some of the playmaking, right? And Coby White is still going to get a lot of playmaking opportunities and chances to handle the ball as well. Does that finish in an assist form, which would affect his assist rate or not? Like, this is why I hope that the NBA eventually gets into the area, at least in advanced analytics, is tracking kind of the hockey assist thing. I would like to see a better tracking of that because I think that's going to be a kind of important thing that Coby White and Josh Giddey, what kind of balances out their games together is how who gets the hockey assist, the assist before the assist, right? That's something to look out for there. But the Bulls, regardless of what you're seeing, what the data is telling us now is that the Bulls are forcing Coby White into a role that he hasn't necessarily been the best at. Now, that does not mean that he can grow in that game. I've told you guys, I've learned not to put caps on players because at the end of the day, a player is able to grow their game as much as they're willing to put effort. And sometimes a player hasn't done something well enough just because they haven't been forced to do it well enough yet. Coby White, even when he was coming off the bench, pretty much had the ball in his hand. So, that's something that you're looking for. Coby has, yes, said that he sees himself more as a point guard. I understand that, but he's also said that he does need to grow off ball. So you have two quotes from Coby White that both can still be true, right? And so that is the thing that really stood out to me as I really processed the article and stepped away from kind of the bigger stories, and that is that the Bulls see Coby White. And many people are going to say the same thing. Like, again, I don't agree. I think Patrick Williams could be a power forward in this league, but some people are going to say, hey, the Bulls are doing the same thing they do with Patrick Williams, forcing him to be a power forward. At some point, you got to stop trying to force players, and that's never really a great thing to success, is forcing players to fit more into a mode that you have than let them be them. Now, again, this is all theoretical right now. We don't know exactly how the Bulls are going to implement their offense. We don't know how they plan on balancing Josh Giddey and Coby White with half-court playmaking duties. We don't know if, at the end of the day, they're both turned into solid rebounding guards. It could come down to, hey, if you get the rebound, you're going to lead that fast break because we trust either one of you guys to do that. That could be a thing that kind of balances this out as well. So I want to be clear here. Everything that we have right now is theoretical and on paper. Now, I'm not one that has a lot of faith in Billy Donovan to create this kind of offensive concept that's super creative and something that we can't necessarily envision. But maybe he can do that. Maybe adding Dan Craig, maybe adding Wes Unseld Jr. as voices to this coaching staff. Maybe they can cook up something that we haven't quite seen this team be able to cook up in a major way. But you're starting a 3-guard lineup, theoretically. And the balance between these 3 players, as your perimeter players being Josh Giddey, Coby White, Zach LaVine, the balance that's strict between those 3 players is going to be really important to the Bulls' offense overall and the flow of the game, because that's where your perimeter scoring is going to come from. That's where your perimeter creation is going to come from as well, with Josh Giddey being one of the better playmaking guards in the league as far as open shots generated for his teammates. So, there's a balancing act that has to be done here. It's not as seamless as a fit as, I would like, right? If they were going to move Coby White to be the shooting guard, I would have liked somebody maybe that can shoot 3-point better to kind of add some spacing to allow Coby White to kind of get to work in the mid-range. But this is going to be a fun thing to watch, to hear about in training camp, to see in the preseason, to see how this offensive scheme and philosophies that the Bulls are building, how it really looks, man. Because on paper, there's some things that definitely that you can see working, but there are also some things that can be sticking points and pain points for this offense to try to get over the hump of, and it may take some time to learn. And if they come out the other side of that learning it, then cool, great, cool beans there, right? But I guess we'll end up seeing. But let me know what you guys think on that. Hearing kind of Coby White's off-ball scoring versus on-ball scoring, those type of things. How do you feel about the Bulls viewing Coby White as more of an off-ball player going forward? And is that the best role suited for Coby White? Let me know that down below. All right, let's get into another thing in Darnell Mayberry that he wrote in here, and this is about our rook, Matss Buzelies. You don't pronounce the T as a T. Took me a little while to kind of get over. Vaughn, you be tripping on that as well, calling them Buzelis. Listen, we be tripping on these foreign players' names. Well, Matss is our guy. We'll get it together. But he says this: Bulls rookie forward Matss Buzelies apparently can play. It's one thing for the 11th pick to impress in summer league, but word out of minicamp sessions is that the 19-year-old is holding his own in team activities. Buzelis has impressed with his passing and ability to attack the rim. And here's what I want to tell you: why that is hugely important for the Bulls is that what we're trying to adapt and what is more modern, right? This is just as the Bulls become a more modern offense, this is what you want to have, is solid passing from almost every position. And Matss Buzelies, who his best skill set initially, early into his career, is going to be his ability to attack the rim. It's going to be how he plays the passing lanes. It's going to be his weak side blocks. It's going to be his ability to run in transition and finish at the rim. And if he is passing well, because of what the upside of Matss Buzelies is a point forward in this league. Now, the 3-point shooter can make that even more dangerous. If you have a big that develops as a 3-point shooter, can pass, can get to the rim, listen, that's where you start getting into unicorn territory, right? But if Buzelis can come in and he can pass well enough to start off his his career, and he's attacking the rim. Just those two things. If he can do those two things at a high enough level, that is going to get him minutes on this Bulls team, because it means that you are passing well enough to get your teammates involved. Attacking the rim is one of the more high efficiency ways that you can score as well, especially as a rookie big in the NBA. So that's important. And I think the question that the Bulls are going to have here is that in Summer League, yeah, he shot a terrible efficiency rate. He's going to be coming into a more structured system, being in the NBA, especially being a player that is not going to start more than likely, right? We'll see what happens with Patrick Williams. If he's not ready to go, maybe that changes, right? But if he's able to play in a better structure, and he's able to focus on the things that he does well, which means being more efficient at those things, this could be a big rookie season for Matss Buzelies. Now, I'm not saying big as far as rookie of the year big. I'm not saying big as far as like Matss Buzelies averages 15 points per game. I'm not saying that. But I think a Buzelis that, regardless of the numbers, right? Let's take the averages. I'm not going to worry about the averages. But if he can consistently find a way to impact the game for the Chicago Bulls in his rookie year, that would be one of the better rookie years that we've seen for a Bulls player in a while. That's what you want to do. The upside is there with Matss. The question is that, especially in this rookie year, with that shot still rounding out, which he has solid mechanics on, but with that shot still rounding out, how effective can you be? And if you can be effective as a passer, and you can be effective attacking the rim and getting out in transition on a team that is going to be trying to play faster, those things can get you minutes in the NBA. And being, I think 20 years old by the time the season officially starts for Matss Buzelies, that's another important thing as well. But let me know how you guys feel. Hearing that Matss Buzelies has impressed in the minicamp so far, and holding his own with the players, the veterans on this team. Let me know what you guys think on that and how excited you are overall about Matss Buzelies coming into his rookie year. All right, let's get into the last topic for today, and I saved this for dead last because, honestly, I don't want to talk about it, but it happens every offseason. We got to talk about it because we're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls, and I'd be remiss if I did not talk about this topic. Derrick Rose, apparently, initially it was reported as a waive, but apparently both sides, he asked to be let out of his contract, and the sides agreed to a buyout. Now, people, of course, are naturally asking, should the Bulls bring back Derrick Rose? They're also asking, is he going to retire? Now, I think if he's asking for a buyout, to me, that may mean that he's going to try to get on a team that he feels he still wants to contribute and that he can. He's going to try to find a team that he can contribute to. At this point, I'm not mad if Derrick Rose decides to ring chase. I'm not mad at that at all. You can be Steve Kerr with the Spurs. Don't even get off the bench. Go and get your ring, young fella. You got an MVP. I'm not mad at you, right? But the question now stands as well with Derrick Rose is this. Now, Bulls fans asking, should the Bulls bring in Derrick Rose? Now, keep in mind, we got 14 out of the 15 roster spots guaranteed. Ernalot Batum, THT may be fighting over that last roster spot. And here's the thing that I've been saying for years with Derrick Rose fans and the people that say it, unless he's signing a one-day contract to retire a Chicago Bull at this point where the Bulls are, no, I'm good. And I know that that's blasphemy. Listen, I get it. That a lot of Bulls fans think, and we had this conversation last offseason where Bulls fans who try to convince everybody, oh no, but Derrick Rose can still come off the bench. He can provide 16 to 18 minutes. He still got, listen, at this point, bringing back Derrick Rose would be a novelty act. And that's not to say that he can't still maybe impact the game. But with where this Bulls team is going, our deepest position is guard. We already got one guy in Lonzo Ball that we don't know what the hell he's going to be able to bring, if he's going to be healthy or not. I'm good. Like, I love Derrick Rose. And the time that Derrick Rose spent here with the Chicago Bulls is special and should always be remembered. And Derrick Rose will always be a Bull. I don't care how many years he plays combined on other teams. He's always going to be a Bull. He should retire a Bull. I firmly believe that. But I'm past the point. Bringing back Derrick Rose would just be another thing to try to sell and throw a smoke screen over this fan base, and I'm good. I'm good. I'm good on that aspect of it. If Derrick Rose coming back to actually play for the Chicago Bulls, I'm good. And I know that's not something everybody wants to hear, everybody is going to agree with, but I'm good. I wish Derrick Rose the best. I hope if he does play in the NBA next year, he can get on with a team that has a chance to win a title. But if he comes back here to Chicago, at this point with where this roster currently is, now next season, maybe that changes. Maybe LaVine's gone, Alonzo's gone, Vooch is gone. We got a team full of young players. We're bringing in Derrick Rose to kind of be a veteran on the back end of that bench. That's different. But where this team is right now, I'm good. That's just my point on it. That's all I wanted to say on it. That's my thought process. I'm not expecting everyone, or really anyone, to agree with me on that, because I know that we all have a blind spot for Derrick Rose. I had a blind spot. Hell, when we signed Alex Caruso, That was just, 3 years ago. I was saying we should have signed Derrick Rose instead of Alex Caruso. That was my blind spot. That was the last year I had that blind spot. I'm over it. I love Derrick Rose. Love what he means for the city. Love what he did for the franchise. And I hope that he retires a Bull. And if they retire anybody's number, Derrick Rose, number 1, deserves to be that. But at the end of the day, I'm good. On him signing to actually be a part of this team, I'm good. But that's my thought process, man. I love you guys. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.